Let me segue into our next guest, Stacy Phillips. And reason I brought the list and I brought the speakers on in the particular order is there's just a level of realness around what happens inside of families and money and power and separation and divorce. And we brought Aaron and Jocelyn in on before that really is the preventive skills in order to never meet somebody like Stacy. But I really want to bring Stacy on for her to describe what she really sees on her end of it. And so let's just kind of talk about who Stacy is. She's one of the country's most well-respected family law practitioners out of Los Angeles, handling primarily complex, high net worth, high profile divorce cases. She has guided clients through critical transitions in their lives for more than 35 years of experience in every facet of family law. Stacy is an author, philanthropist, mentor, sought-after speaker, and communicator of family law issues in the news. She is consistently selected to the top 10 Southern California super lawyers list. Help me welcome Stacy to the summit.
Hi, Walter.
Stacy, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you in Arizona?
Oh, it's great. Wish I was in LA. I'll be there in a couple weeks for a vacation after our summit concludes. I'm right over to Newport. But anyway, in the intro, Stacy, it may seem odd that I would bring on a family law expert when we're talking about the empowered woman, but I think it's an important conversation that people hear from you just kind of around what happens, and whether you're representing the husband or the wife. Obviously this is primarily a women's program. What can you talk about, kind of your background and your evolution, and then we'll kind of go into some details about specific issues.
I don't think it's odd at all. When you're talking about, start with women's empowerment, no woman, no man should lose their power when they're in a relationship. I believe in interdependence, not dependence or complete independence, but interdependence, where the collective whole is better than the individual parts, which your prior guests were talking about. There's the marriage, and that is the most important, more important than the individual parts, but you have to make the individual parts happy. And if, for God's sakes, if you as a woman or man are not empowered, or your power is taken away from you during your marriage, you better get it back in the divorce process. And very often I see individuals who are clients who have lost their power, lost themselves throughout their marriage for a whole variety of reasons. Sometimes it's themselves, sometimes it's the relationship, sometimes it's the type of person they're married to. For example, if there's domestic violence, and certainly in California, domestic violence is not just physical. It is interfering with somebody's emotional calm, affecting their emotions, affecting them psychologically. So I think it's really important to be empowered and keep your power in your relationship. Frankly, and this is my bias, I'd rather be with somebody, or I'd like to think other people would want to be with somebody who knows who they are and has their own power. Some people don't. So I'm a family law attorney. I see people at their worst. There's a saying that criminal lawyers represent bad people generally at their best behavior, and family law attorneys represent good people for the most part in their worst behavior. Talk about it. It's a liquidity event, not a good liquidity event, but a liquidity event. And where the Walters of the world come in to either help the process or to help manage somebody's money when they walk away with whatever they have. And often that is the most important negotiation of their lives.
Great points. I loved your opening comments about interdependence. Yep. And then the loss of power. I mean, you almost said it all right there, losing self. And speak to, you deal with a lot of incredibly wealthy people that walk into your office, and they got a big house, but probably one lives on one side of the house, the other lives on the other side of the house, or they don't even live in the same house because they got multiple houses.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Just that loss of self, or what can we learn from you around how to avoid those types of situations?
Okay, shameless plug. I wrote a book. It's called Divorce. It's all about control, how to win the emotional, psychological, and legal wars. And yes, Walter, I promised you a copy, but my only copy at home, I can't ship to you. So I got to deal with shipping in this COVID situation. But I talk about the big six, the main reasons that relationships, not just marriage, but relationships, very close relationships when people are living together, generally fall apart. Number one, and not in order of priority, just in order: money, which is property and wealth; children; health, both physical and mental; loss of love, loss of intimacy; growth, personal and professional; and fear, as I talked about before, physical, emotional, psychological. So,
Give us those again, just a tad slower.
okay, and then I was going to go through each one if you'd like. Money.
Okay, yeah, absolutely, please.
Okay, let's start with money, property, and wealth. You start with a lot, and people don't know how to manage that. You start with a little, and you live in a little house or little apartment, and then you build things up, and people change. You've heard money changes people, and it could change people in the same trajectory or differently. So if somebody still wants to be sort of small town while the other is out on the town because now they have the money for the jet and the boat and the fancy cars, they grow differently. Loss of income, loss of money, somebody who goes through a bankruptcy, or COVID hits and they lose their business, and how people struggle to keep themselves afloat and do it differently. Number two, children. Children can keep people together. Children can drive people apart. If you have a child or children who have some significant issues, if you don't see things the same way, you don't parent the same way, or one parent is so focused on a child or children that he or she does not give attention to the spouse, that can ruin a marriage. Three, health, physical and mental. Somebody can get sick. You would think that health issues might bring people together. Not so, because sometimes the other party doesn't step up to the plate, or the person who is ill pushes people away. I'm just using a couple of examples. Four, loss of love, loss of intimacy. That is very profound. I can't tell you how many clients tell me they haven't been intimate with their spouse, their partner, for decades.
Did you say decades?
Yes.
Okay.
Literally decades. I've had people literally call me after they've gone out on a few dates after being separated and saying, "Oh, it works. It wasn't me." Just people change, and you can be intimate with somebody without being intimate. But if you lose that connection, I don't care if you're having sex or not having sex. That to me is not the ultimate. It's that ability to connect. Five, growth, personal and professional. Example, you start with a couple in a more traditional marriage, and he has the job, she stays home and raises the kids. And say she says, I want to go back to school, or I want to get a job. I want to do something for me. And her husband says, wait a second, that's not our deal. That's not what I signed up for. So if one person wants to grow and the other doesn't want him or her to grow, you've got a problem. If somebody is growing and it affects the other person, however they perceive it, that's a problem. You have to grow together in some fashion, at least appreciate the growth in the other. And six is fear, physical, emotional, and psychological. Domestic violence is rampant in this country, rampant around the world. And COVID, it is increasing. Divorces are and will be increasing as a result of this pandemic. Just look at all the articles from Wuhan. My business, if you call it a business, has been increasing and will increase. Bankruptcy lawyers, it's horrible, but that's what we're dealing with. When you're living with somebody and you can't leave your home, you either realize what you appreciate and are grateful for having that partner, or you say, I have one life, I don't want to spend it this way, and you choose to get divorced. It's very odd to me. I'm getting calls now from people who are in quarantine with somebody and they want to get divorced. The person's in the next room. Very odd. But I understand it.
Well, you said a couple things in your 6 that kind of resonated with me. The economic change of money. Mm-hmm. Either, going down the ladder is very, is very painful. I experienced that, but I really like the love, intimacy, and connection. Mm-hmm. I think that the connection piece, and then what I really want you to elaborate on is the fear part, because we may have some women that may be in a difficult situation that have a lot of fear in their lives. They don't know what to do. Now, you talk about domestic physical fear, but then you talk about emotional fear and different kinds of fear. Walk us through the different kinds of fear that are not obvious.
Okay, so you could be afraid for your physical safety. People understand that. You can also be afraid for your emotional and your psychological safety. Somebody can be gaslighting you. If you remember the movie Gaslight, you think you're going crazy because the setup is designed to make you go crazy. Or your spouse or partner is so emotionally abusive, calling you names, doesn't lay a hand on you, but what comes out of his or her mouth is so venomous and vitriolic that you feel like nothing. You could be afraid of money. You could be afraid of leaving your partner or your spouse because you're afraid of being left on the street. All the cliches that somebody will say to their partner, you leave me, you'll never see your children. You'll be on the street. You won't get a dime from me. It's terrifying. And our courts are designed not to allow that to happen. But at the same time, attorney's fees are very expensive. And people, when they can't work out their issues, they try to work it out in a court, and they can blow through all their money just to make a point. So I personally think California's system is the best in the country, but it's still got its issues. People can be afraid for their own health. If they're not in an intact relationship, who's going to help take care of them? Or living in that situation is bad for their health because it's so stressful. You want more elaboration? I'll go on.
No, we're good. Just kind of parting thought. First of all, I love it. I love the 6. And I think it's almost, because we had a couples coach before, I think your 6 is amazing, because now if my audience looks at that 6 and goes, man, I've got some issues there, then man, you better giddy up and get something done. Otherwise, you're going to walk into Stacy's office. But give me your book again. I want to make sure everybody knows what your book is. What's the title?
Divorce. It's all about control. How to win the emotional, psychological, and legal wars. You can buy it online.
All right, Stacy, thank you so much for being here. Your wisdom, your insight. I know you're super busy, and thank you for being who you are. And we will see you soon.
Whatever you ask, Walter. Thank you.
Okay.